Do you ever feel like you're living like a victim of a scam, but you don't even know who the scammer is? Let's be blunt, you think you're thinking. You think your suffering is because if you made more money, if that jerk apologized to you, if your child finally passed the civil service exam, you would be fine. You think your suffering is caused by reality, right? You're completely wrong. I'm about to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, but once you understand it, it could save your life. Your suffering isn't because your life is bad, it's because your brain, this 3-pound lump of flesh, doesn't have happiness as an option in its factory settings. Not only is it not an option, it's actually anti-happiness. Please stop what you're doing right now and take a second to think back. Why were you so happy when yesterday someone complimented you 3 times? But as soon as there was a single criticism, or even a meaningful glance, you went home, lay in bed, and those 3 compliments vanished like words written on water. While the criticism was etched in stone, playing on repeat in your mind, you tossed and turned in bed, getting angry and more wrong the more you thought about it. You were acting out a whole drama in your head, even imagining how you should have been tortured, coming up with all sorts of lines, and ended up staying awake until 3 a.m. Friend, this isn't because you're petty or lack self-control. Stop the self-criticism. It's because you're a human being, or more accurately, a biological machine carrying the curse of millions of years of evolution. Let's conduct a thought experiment. Imagine we travel back in time 100,000 years to the African savanna. Suppose you have 2 ancestors, let's call them Ah-Dai and Ah-Jin. Ah-Dai spends his days gazing at the blue sky and white clouds, thinking how wonderful the world is. When he sees the grass rustling in the wind, he thinks, wow, that must be a cute little rabbit, and he goes to investigate. Ah-Jin, on the other hand, suffers from anxiety. He's always worried and nervous. When he sees the grass rustling, his first thought is, oh no, that's a lion, that's a poisonous snake. That's a savage from the neighboring tribe coming to kill me. So he runs away. What's the outcome? The outcome is that Ah-Dai, the one who easily felt happy and always looked on the bright side, was eaten by a lion, and his genes were wiped out. Ah-Jin, the one who was constantly anxious and saw everything as a threat, survived. Not only did he survive, but he also married and had children, passing on his anxious brain to the next generation, and so on, generation after generation. The optimistic, relaxed, and carefree genes were all eliminated through the brutal process of evolution. Ultimately, everyone alive today is a descendant of Ah-Jin. Do you understand? Your brain wasn't designed to make you happy, it was designed to keep you alive. In the dictionary of evolution, happiness is a luxury, while anxiety is a life-saving tool. Scientists call this negative bias. That's why you always feel like life is full of suffering. It's not because your life is truly so full of suffering, but because your brain, to protect you, has a built-in pain amplifier. It's like a diligent but not so smart security guard. Even if an innocent little cat walks by, it will sound the alarm and yell at you, warning. There's a tiger. Buddha, 2,500 years ago, sitting under the Bodhi tree, saw through the essence of this game. Buddhism says that life is suffering. Many people hear this and think it's pessimism, but it's not. The suffering here has a broader meaning. It's not just pain, but also imperfection and anxiety. Think about it. Doesn't this feeling of anxiety sound familiar? You're sitting in a safe house, you can order food delivery when you're hungry, and you have air conditioning when it's hot. If you were transported back to ancient times, you'd be living like an emperor. But are you at peace? No, you're not. Your brain is still working, still looking for trouble. Before, it was looking for lions on the savannah. Now that the lions are gone, it starts looking for other dangers. A frown from your boss is a lion. A downward trend in the stock market is a lion. Your husband forgetting to reply to a text message is a lion. Even a new wrinkle at the corner of your eye in the mirror is a lion. This security system is constantly running. This is what Buddhism calls ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid, but rather that you're being held captive by an outdated survival program without realizing it. You think that the voice chattering incessantly in your head is you, but in reality, it's just electrical currents running wild in your brain. Typically, people seek solutions externally. We think we're suffering because we don't have enough money, so we try to make more money. We think we're suffering because our partner isn't considered enough, so we change partners or try to change them. We desperately try to change our external environment, attempting to remove all the thorns, believing that this will pave a smooth path to happiness. But this is a huge joke. It's like thinking the road under your feet is too rough, and your solution is to try to cover the whole world with cowhide. Is that possible? No, it's not. True wisdom is about putting on a pair of shoes, and those shoes are awareness of the brain's mechanisms. Now let's talk about something even more profound. Since the brain is this kind of thing, are we destined to be its slaves for life, destined to spend the rest of our lives in anxiety, fear, and dissatisfaction? Of course not. If that were the case, I wouldn't be wasting my time talking about this. Humanity's greatest strength lies in the fact that although we are born with animal instincts, we possess the ability to rewrite the code. This is what spiritual practice is. Don't think of spiritual practice as something too mystical, like meditation leading to ascension or special abilities. True spiritual practice is a hacking attack on your brain's original programming. The psychologist Rick Hanson said something incredibly accurate. The brain treats negative experiences like Velcro and positive experiences like a non-stick bread. Bad things stick firmly, while good things slip away. The reverse engineering you need to do is to do the opposite. When something unpleasant happens, for example, someone insults you online, your brain instantly activates the Velcro mode. You'll feel a surge of anger, your heart rate increases, and your chest tightens. If you follow this impulse, you lose. You become that primitive person who runs away at the slightest rustle of grass. You need to forcibly insert a pause button at that moment. This 1-second pause is what Buddhism calls awareness. Do you know? This ability to be aware is actually very counterintuitive, because it requires you to step back and become a third-person observer. It's like watching a horror movie. If you're completely immersed in it, you'll be terrified. But if you suddenly realize that it's just light and shadows on a screen, that there are cameramen and actors who were just eating lunch, in that instant, the fear disappears. Life is also a horror movie. Your anxiety, your anger, your jealousy are all just shadows on the screen. The so-called plot of "I've been wronged, I'm so miserable" is a script written by your brain's screenwriter to make you pay attention to perceived threats. What you need to do is not fight the monsters in the script, but take a step back and look at the screen, and coldly say, "Hey, brain, you're acting again." But that's not enough. Merely seeing through the pain only brings you peace, not happiness. The flame of happiness is extinguished by the flood of anxiety as soon as it's ignited. The task now is, when you see a glimmer of hope, or drink a good cup of tea, or hear a child's laughter, even the slightest bit of small happiness, you must force yourself to record it with the hands of your consciousness. Stop, don't move, count to 15 or 20 seconds in your mind. You must savor this moment like you would an expensive piece of chocolate. You must engage your senses to feel the warmth of the sunlight, to smell the tea, to let the laughter vibrate on your eardrums. What is this? In neuroscience, this is called unexpected neural rewiring. Since the brain defaults to not remembering happiness, we will manually write happiness into the brain. Is this what Buddhism means by accumulating merit? The so-called merit isn't about God giving you money, but rather cultivating a brain structure that can perceive happiness. That's the true concept. But we need to dig even deeper. This is the core issue today. Why are we so attached to these emotions? Why, even though we know they're negative biases, that they're tricks of the brain, do we still get caught up in them when pain strikes? Because there's an ultimate boss at play. Buddhism calls this self-clinging, and modern psychology calls it the ego. Have you noticed that all suffering has a common subject? I was offended, I lost money, I wasn't respected. I'm not important enough in this world. What exactly is this I? To keep you alive, your brain has to create the illusion of a self, making you feel that this body is incredibly important. That your face, your opinions, your possessions are sacred and inviolable. Once this I is attacked, the amygdala in the brain goes into overdrive, making you angry and causing you to retaliate. This is humanity's greatest tragedy. We're either fighting desperately to defend a non-existent self, or we're working ourselves to death to satisfy the desires of this self. Zhuangzi had a brilliant saying, "The perfect man has no self." This doesn't mean you become a wooden puppet, but rather that you no longer consider yourself the center of the universe. When someone insults you, if you have strong self-clinging, you'll think, "How dare he insult me?" Like an arrow shot from a bow, if there's no target, it will only fly through the air and eventually fall to the ground. That target is me. If you remove the target, the world remains the same world. The lion might still be a lion, but it can no longer hurt your heart. At this point, you might think, this is too difficult, I'm not a saint, how can I remove myself? It is indeed difficult, it's a lifelong lesson. Perhaps even a lesson spanning several lifetimes. But you don't need to achieve it all at once. You only need to try playing a game with yourself the next time pain comes. The next time anxiety keeps you awake. Lie in the darkness and observe that anxious thought. You can say to it, "Hey, I know who you are. You're that primitive security guard from 100,000 years ago. Diligently protecting me. Thank you for your hard work, but it's safe now." When you can treat the crazy thoughts in your brain with this kind of humorous compassion, you've already won. You are no longer a slave led by your emotions. You become the master watching the hard-working servant. This is true freedom. This freedom doesn't require you to have vast wealth, high status, or even perfect health. It only requires you to maintain a little distance in this noisy, chaotic world full of lies and traps. This distance is the other shore. Well, the point has been made clear. But the theory itself cannot save you. Just as a prescription cannot cure a disease, you need to take the medicine. The world will continue its madness. The alarm clock will still ring tomorrow morning, the subway will still be crowded, and that annoying person will still say annoying things. You need to change. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes and the first negative thought usually pops up, I hope you remember this moment. At that moment, don't rush to anger, don't rush to anxiety, just smile. Smile at gently that millions of years old evolutionary ghost, that chattering brain, that blustering ego, and then put on your shoes and walk your own path. Pain will still come knocking, but you can choose not to invite it in for tea. What do you say?